Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny, and today we're going to be ranking all of the new releases that I've read this year. I have read 19 2023 releases so far this year. There are so many more that I want to get to, but I wanted to kind of make a ranking list while the number was still relatively small, so as not to overwhelm myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my lowest ranked new release to my top ranked, and I will give you guys the average Goodreads rating as well as my own rating, because sometimes Goodreads disagrees with me. So and there are some books on this list that were not my favorite, but I know that there is an audience for them somewhere, and so yeah, let's get started. Coming in at number 19 is Liar, Dreamer, Thief. This was rated a 3.61 on Goodreads, and I gave this 2 stars. So this was not my favorite. Obviously, it's the lowest rated new release for me so far this year. I went into this with high expectations. I picked this up specifically for the unreliable narrator. If you've never heard about this, it follows a main character who is a bit of a stalker and is tracking one of her colleagues. And she finds out that her colleague has known about it all along. Early on in the book, her colleague commits suicide, blaming her for his death. And so you kind of follow the events that led to that and the events after that. Along with all of that mystery, you also have kind of a magical realism component where she sees things that may or may not be there, which is where the unreliable narrator comes into play. And yeah, I thought I was really going to enjoy this. I found it confusing. I found some of the content to be purposefully convoluted, and yeah, it just wasn't for me. Coming in at number 18 is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix, and this on Goodreads was rated 3.77, and I gave this 3 stars. So I didn't hate this book, but like other Grady Hendrix, this just was okay for me. If you've never heard of this, this is, I think, was supposed to come out last year and ended up coming out at the very beginning of 2023. And you follow a brother and a sister who are trying to sell their deceased parents' home, and their parents kind of died under suspicious circumstances, and their parents were also puppeteers. And so while they are cleaning out their parents' house, things start popping up as far as like memories, and also these creepy puppets throughout the house. Weird things start happening. And yeah, I think the synopsis of this says some houses don't want to be sold. And the puppets were creepy, that part. So like there was atmosphere to the book, but I just really didn't understand. It just was a little boring for me, even though like it was creepy. I feel like the other Grady Hendrix that I've read is A Southern Book Club Guide to Killing a Vampire, something along those lines, and I just feel like his writing is dry for me, and I want like suspense. I want not just creepy, I want tension, and I don't really feel like there is a lot of tension in his books. Next is Deep as the Sky, Red as the Sea, and on Goodreads this is rated as a 3.62, and I rated this 3 stars. This was one where I honestly think that if the marketing had been different for this book, I probably would not have picked it up. I picked up this book because I wanted a pirate adventure story, and this is marketed as historical fantasy, and this is definitely heavier on historical. And it's very, well, I think it's historically accurate. You follow a female pirate queen whose husband dies very early on in the book, and you follow the events of her life. Sorry, if you see random things moving, my cat is having zoomies at the moment. He's running around my bookshelf. So anyway, you follow a pirate queen whose husband has just died, and you have to follow the ramifications of her living in a man's world without her husband and trying to keep power and stay safe. And this was very much, it was a story about her life It was not an adventure story. There are specific events that happen in her life that would be considered adventures, but this was really just more about the politics of being a woman in a pirate crew and what that means and how she kept her power. Number 16 is What Lies in the Woods. This on Goodreads is rated a 3.99 and I rated this 3 stars. This book is based on a true crime podcast, so it is very true crime-esque. And this is just another example of why I think mystery thrillers are very hit or miss for me. I didn't hate this book. I also didn't love it. Mystery thrillers have a really hard time wowing me. I just didn't. This was another book where the suspension just was not there. Suspense, not suspension. Anyway, so this you follow, I believe the girl's name was Naomi, and you know that she moved away from home whenever she has moved away from home as an adult and does not go back to her hometown very often. As an 11-year-old child, she was attacked in the woods and stabbed 17 times. Her and some friends were in the woods when this happened, and they end up putting away a murderer, the person who she believes that stabbed her. And you find out that there are some lies interwoven within what happened in her childhood. She ends up being called back home, and some of those lies start surfacing, and that's what the book is about. I didn't hate this book. I just felt like some of the decisions that the main character made didn't really make sense to me, and I was just kind of bored in some of the places. I don't think that it was as fast as it should have been, even though this is a fairly short book, but just wasn't for me. Number 15 is The Frugal Wizard's Handbook to Medieval England. I think I always mess up the title, so I'll make sure to put the picture here because I really don't want to hold up the book either. This has a 3.81 rating on Goodreads, and I rated this a 3 star as well. So this book is one of Brandon Sanderson's secret projects, and I think this is the only Brandon Sanderson. Oh no, that's not true. This is one of 2 Brandon Sandersons that I've given 3 stars. The other was Steelheart. But this is very sci-fi multiverse-y, and I really enjoyed the start of the book, but I didn't enjoy where it went. So you follow the main character. Once again, I'm not going to remember his name, but he wakes up in the middle of the woods. He does not know where he is. He does not know who he is, and he is surrounded by like soot. Like it looks like there was a big explosion, and he has like an outline of himself, and he is in kind of a strange world. They have these really weird customs, and he kind of sneaks around for a little bit. He eventually gets caught or seen and incorporates himself in the society, but the entire time he's trying to figure out where he is, what is his backstory, why is he there, and I think that's all I want to give you, because I think you if you want to read it, you kind of need to go in blind. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. I think this type of story from Brandon Sanderson just isn't for me. I enjoy more of his fantasy, massive worlds than this type of story. So the next on this list is Our Hideous Progeny. On Goodreads, this is a 4.03, and I rated this a 3 star as well. So I really wanted to enjoy this book. This is a Frankenstein retelling, and that is one of the reasons I picked it up, because I've really enjoyed a lot of the Frankenstein retellings that I have read so far, but I was very frustrated by this book, I think. So you follow, I don't want to get her name wrong, but she is a relation to Victor Frankenstein. She is his niece, and you follow her. In this book, Victor Frankenstein has gone missing, and has been missing for quite a while, but he was well known in the science world, and his experiments were well known in the science world, and she wants to kind of make a name for herself in this community. Her husband also is a quote-unquote science, I kind of want to call them science wannabes, because they were not accepted into the scientific field by merit, and really they only exist because of the name Frankenstein. But she wants to make a name for herself. Her and her husband end up following down Victor Frankenstein's path, and I don't want to tell you much more about them than that. I did not enjoy this because of the relationship between the two main characters. I think that the husband is just absolutely awful, and I know that there was a point to that, but I want to say it's Mary and Henry, but I might be wrong. She blames him for a lot of things, and the decisions that she makes and the decisions to stay where she is and accept her fate in certain things. And that's not the entire book, but like during certain places this happens, and I just found it very frustrating. And once again, I think that was the point, but I didn't enjoy it. It gave a very bleak overview of the entire story, which once again, I think was the point. Next, we have The Salt Grows Heavy. This on Goodreads was a 3.69, and I rated this a 3-star. This, I think I would have enjoyed it more if it was longer. So it was like 120 pages maybe, and it's based on a short story. You follow a woman who is a mermaid-esque creature, and she ends up on land, and some bad things have occurred in her original kingdom, and she is traveling with a plague doctor. And they run into another kingdom where some really weird things are happening with children. And I'll just explain like the first little scene. She sees a child die, killed by other children. And you follow her and this plague doctor's experiences in this other kingdom. And once again, I think I would have enjoyed this more if it had been a longer story. I feel like a lot of the details were cut short in this kingdom, and like a lot of short stories, there wasn't a lot of depth. There was really just what we were experiencing in the moment, and not a lot of history about her character, not a lot of history about the characters that we learn in this separate kingdom. So I think I was missing that aspect, but I think the story was really cool and unique, and I would be interested in diving deeper and reading a story that is longer about this same being. Number 12 is City of Nightmares. So this I rated a 3, and Goodreads has it rated as a 3.79. So I've talked about this before on my channel. You follow a young girl who lives in a city of nightmares. This city is made up of people who have had nightmares and become their own nightmares. So if you fall asleep, have a nightmare, you can potentially awake to turn into your worst nightmare. And some of the people who turn into nightmares become they kind of come back into their humanity and their brain, and so they can still think and act as a human, but they look like a nightmare. Other people become a nightmare and lose all humanity from themselves, and so they become a danger to the citizens around them. So she's living in this society. She's a bit of a coward, and she gets sent on this mission that definitely puts her in danger, and you follow her having to get herself out of it. The reason I rated this a 3, I think this book had a lot of potential. I loved the world and the concept, but we focused on a specific nightmare and a specific storyline. There's a bit of a budding romance. I don't know that I call it a romance, but a budding friendship between our two main characters, and the character that we chose to follow is kind of a boring nightmare, and I wish that we would have gotten more into some of the more creative things that could have happened in this world. This is a series, so it might get better. I think at this point plan on continuing, but we'll see. Number 11 is Sisters of the Lost Nation. Goodreads has this rated as a 3.77. I rated this a 4-star. This book follows a young girl named Anna who lives on an Indian reservation, and girls start going missing. There is a dual timeline. You follow her at the time where her sister goes missing, and she's trying to figure out what happened to her sister, and then I think 30 some days before that happens, and then the timelines eventually collide, and she's trying to solve this mystery of the missing girls and then eventually her missing sister. And I really wish that this book would have dived harder into the horror aspects, because it followed a lot of the mythology and the history of I can't remember where this is set, the culture of the people, of the indigenous people in this book. And I think it's tribes that were in North America, if I remember correctly, and the author took bits and pieces of all of the different, or a lot of different tribes in North America, and put their mythologies together. And I really enjoyed that aspect, but it was a very small portion of the book, and that's the only reason this got a 4-star, not a 5-star. I really did enjoy it, but I was expecting more of that. Okay, on to the top 10 new releases that I've read so far this year. Starting at number 10, it is The Bone Shard War. So this on Goodreads is rated a 4.01, and I rated it a 4-star, so I was really close to what everyone else thought. This is the third and final book in the Drown Empire, or the Drowning Empire series. The first book is The Bone Shard Daughter, and I've talked about that a lot on my channel, so I won't give you any information about The Bone Shard War because it is the third in the series. Bone Shard Daughter, just a short synopsis, you are following 5 POVs. The main 2, however, are the Emperor's daughter, who is having memory problems and she can't remember who she is. She's trying to kind of come into her memories, but also learn her father's power, which is bone shard magic, which is what her father uses to kind of rule the empire in an iron fist type of a way. And so she is trying to become her father's heir. And there's some tension there between her and I think it's her stepbrother. There's another family member that will take her place as the heir if she can't figure her stuff out. And then the second character is Jovis, who is searching for his wife who has gone missing, and he is sailing around the islands. This is an island kingdom, trying to figure out where she went, and he gets himself into some trouble along the way trying to figure out where his wife is. There is an animal companion on here, which I've talked about recently, named Methy, who is super cute. The islands and the kingdom of itself has some very intricate details pulled in throughout the 3 books. The islands are drowning, which is, they are sinking essentially, or some of the islands have sunk. And they don't know why. So that's part of the mystery of the trilogy, that you're trying to figure out why this is happening to the islands within this kingdom. And the other POVs, the other 3 that I have not mentioned, are random characters throughout the empire. So you get to see kind of the political realm and what's happening on other islands as well. There's one very odd perspective that you follow, and kind of adds another layer of mystery to this series. Number 9 is Spice Road, which on Goodreads is a 3.74, and I rated this 4 stars. This is YA fantasy. You follow Imani, who lives in a kingdom who is in the middle of a desert, surrounded by what's called the Forbidden Wastes. And Imani is a great warrior. She is known in her village to be a great protector of the land. Within the Forbidden Wastes, you have creatures like ghouls, jinn, other monsters that would attack the town and kill people, and so they have a guard, which is what Imani is part of. She, however, is always kind of under scrutiny because her brother, or she's living in her brother's shadow, I should say. Her brother was a great warrior at one point in time, but is believed to have betrayed the kingdom and has since vanished. Some people believe that he's dead, some people believe that he's still alive and that he fled from the kingdom. And so you kind of follow this mystery. She has to figure out what she believes and what path she's going to take to get there. If I haven't said already, the land in itself has a magic in it called spice, which is administered through tea. And I just thought this was a really fun story. The Jinn in this story that you end up meeting, it has a really interesting background, and yeah, the story gets really big really quick. So I really enjoyed this. Number 8 on this list I'm sure needs no introduction, and that is Fourth Wing. So on Goodreads, Fourth Wing has a rating of a 4.67, which is an insane rating on Goodreads. I rated this 4 stars. If you haven't heard of this book, I don't know where you've been because it is everywhere. But you follow Violet, who is the daughter of a general of a very large kingdom. And the kingdom has dragon riders, which is like the supreme warriors of their nation. And that is the general. Her mother is a dragon rider and wants her to be a dragon rider as well. The only problem is Violet has a chronic illness that makes her very fragile, makes her bones very brittle, and very prone to breaking and her ligaments tearing, things like that. And so she is forced into this dragon rider school, which is very much ride or die, and she has to figure out how to survive. I really did enjoy this. I think it was very, very consumable. I am going to continue on with the series. The only qualm I have with this is that I do think that because it's a fantasy romance, I think so much of the storyline was wrapped up into the romance and the relationship that is in the book, that the world building kind of took a hit. I really, really enjoyed learning about the dragons in this book, and I wish that we would have had more of that. I do really think this was fun. I rated it 4 stars. I really did enjoy it. I just really wanted to dig more into the world. So yeah. Number 7 is A House with Good Bones. This on Goodreads is rated 3.77, and I rated this a 4 star. So this is by T. Kingfisher. I have wanted to pick up a whole bunch of T. Kingfisher's backlists. So this was one of the ones that I picked up. This is a horror novel about a girl who comes home after hearing from her brother that her mother is acting strangely. And she comes home to her mother essentially having completely erased all personality from her home. Her walls are all white. She's taken the pictures that she's always loved down, and she seems very terrified to be there. And she doesn't know why. So she's acting in a way that she is afraid of someone overhearing what they're saying, or like she's changed everything about what she knew about her mother. And so she tries to figure out what's going on with her mother. Some really creepy things ensue. And man, T. Kingfisher knows how to build up atmosphere and put people in some crazy situations. I really enjoyed this book. Not quite as much as I enjoyed The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher, but I still had a really good time. Number 6 is Tress of the Emerald Sea. So on Goodreads, this is a 4.52, and I rated this 4 stars. I really enjoyed this. I might have even rated this a 4.5. I have it written down as a 4, but I might have rated it as a 4.5. Just Goodreads obviously doesn't allow us to do 0.5 ratings. I can't remember, but anyway, if you haven't heard of this, this was Brandon Sanderson's secret project number 1, and it follows a young girl named Tress who lives on an island and has a very mediocre life, and she's perfectly happy that way. She wants to stay that way. However, circumstances do not allow her to stay in her boring little life, and she ends up having to set out on an adventure. And that's kind of all I want to tell you about it. It's really cute. It's very whimsical. The world is amazing. Brandon Sanderson has a really phenomenal way of world building. And I really thought that this is a standalone. I'm pretty sure it's a standalone. It does relate to the Cosmere. So if you guys have read other Brandon Sandersons, there is a connection with one of the characters in this book that you will recognize that I really enjoyed. And the world was just a lot of fun. This is a kind of, I don't want to call it a pirate story, but it is a story that happens on a ship or on many ships, and I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun, and yeah, I can't wait for more of the secret projects. Yumi and the Nightmare Painter is on my list for this month. I just haven't gotten to it yet. Number 5 is Murder Your Employer. So this I rated a 3.94, Goodreads rated it a 3.94. I rated it a 5. So this book kind of took me by surprise. I picked this up because I thought it sounded fun. The name, Murder Your Employer, was just fascinating to me. And so you follow a man, I'm not going to remember his name. I want to call him Ezra, but that's probably not right. He wants to murder his boss. Because his boss is a really terrible person. And so you walk into the story as he is trying to commit murder and fails miserably at it, but is tracked down by 2 police officers. He thinks that he's done for, and the police officers say, we completely agree with you. We think that this guy deserves to die, and we're offering you a chance to go to school and become a murderer. And after that happens and he ends up at this school, this book gave me Addams Family vibes as far as some of the things that were taught at the school seemed so nonchalant. And obviously they were awful things because they're teaching people how to murder. That aspect of the Addams Family where, like, they wouldn't blink or bat an eye at someone sitting in an electric chair or someone getting electrocuted. Like, those things are normal. That is kind of the feeling that you get in the school. It is very slow paced. I think a lot of people have problems as far as the pacing once they get into the school, but I really enjoyed the fact that they took their time with it. It was something that you would think they would want to be very hush-hush about, but they normalize it. And I had a lot of fun with this. It's definitely something I haven't ever read before. It's marketed as a murder mystery, I think, or a mystery thriller maybe. But it's not really a mystery because you kind of know who's going to kill who or who wants to kill who throughout the book. So I'm not sure where this fits, but I thought it was a lot of fun. Number 4 on this list is The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi, which is right here, but I'll put a picture up so you guys can see. I really enjoyed this book. This is a pirate story of Amina. So Amina has retired from piratehood, if that's what you call it, and she has become very domestic. She wants to live in a safe place for her daughter and her mother and kind of be out of the life. But life has other plans for her, and she gets a knock on her door and realizes that someone that she knows' daughter has been kidnapped, and she is called back into service to go and retrieve this girl. And so she kind of gets the band back together, which is an aspect I really enjoyed about this story. And you follow her adventure finding this girl. This is a book that I read right after I read Deep as the Sky, Red as the Sea. And this is the pirate story I wanted. I wanted that adventure novel. I wanted to see... I wanted that swashbuckling life. Is that what it's called? This has a lot of fantasy in it. It has a lot of, I don't want to say mythology, but the storytelling component, the myths and legends surrounding some of the pirates and some of the places that they go in the story it was really fun. Number 3 on this list is Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Fairies. So this is another one I've talked about a ton on my channel on Goodreads. This is rated 4.10 and I rated this a 5-star. I absolutely loved this book. I pre-ordered the second book, which comes out, I think, in April of next year, and I don't normally pre-order books that early, but as soon as I finished this, I was like, oh yes, I must continue on with Emily. So Emily is a girl who really does not enjoy other people's company. She is very socially awkward, she wants to essentially lock herself in a room with her work and be left alone. And she travels to this kind of I shouldn't say desolate, that's not the right word. She travels to a very secluded place that is up in the mountains, and she is wanting to research the hidden folk, I believe they are called. So she is creating an encyclopedia of fairies, which is something that has not been done before. People know that fae exist, and there are various types of fae in the world, ranging from dangerous to friendly, and she is trying to catalog all of them and publish this work, which is something that hasn't been done. And the hidden folk specifically have never been studied, and so that's why she's here. And her boss, I can't remember what his relationship to her is, like within work, shows up, and he is absolutely the opposite of her. He's very charismatic. He's the life of the party. He was not supposed to be there. She was supposed to do this by herself, but he decides that he wanted to travel with her and study the Fae as well. And you kind of get to see their relationship grow throughout the book, as well as her experience the hidden folk, the dangers that incur with her studies. Yeah, she's amazing. I loved her character growth. I loved the cozy feel of this, even though there are some high stakes in this book. I absolutely love this story. Number 2 on this list is another one I've talked about a lot, is The Magician's Daughter, and I am just going to keep singing its praises until I hear more people read this book, because it is just fantastic. Goodreads rates this as a 4.04. I rated this a 5-star. This was on my mid-year freakout tag as the top book of the first half of the year. So something has knocked it out since it is number 2, but I still dearly love this book. If you've never heard of The Magician's Daughter, you follow Biddy, who essentially was orphaned on an island, abandoned on an island, and a magician has taken care of her for her entire life. On this island, you have magical beings that exist. You have Hutchincraft, who is the familiar to the magician, and you just have this lovely, like, little whimsical world that she has lived in her entire life. And Rowan, who is the magician, leaves every night to go and get supplies to make sure that they have food and yada yada that they need to live on the island. Well, you soon find out that the island that they live on is has magic, and the rest of the world really does not. Magic exists in the rest of the world, but it's very hard to obtain, and really the only the very, very privileged have access to it. And Rowan, on one of his nightly missions, goes missing, and Biddy has to determine what to do to help him. And so you get to see her experience a bigger world on her own, but you also get to see the relationship between her and Rowan and Hutchincraft. And Hutchincraft is just, he's so cute and so cuddly, and I love him. I love his character. But yeah, I really enjoyed this story. I do think this is a standalone. I don't think that they're going to continue with this. If they do, I will let you know as soon as I find out, but I'm pretty sure it's a standalone. And that leads us to the number 1 new release of the year. I think this will probably be my top book of the year, but it's only August, so who knows what happens from here, and that is The Book That Wouldn't Burn. On Goodreads, this is rated a 4.22. I obviously rated this a 5-star. This book took me by storm. This is fantastic. If you've never heard of this story, you follow 2 main characters, Levira and, Ivar. So Levira and Ivar. And Levira lives on the outskirts of the city as a duster. So she lives kind of in the place that nobody travels. Her town is very desolate. Her people don't have a lot of means to live, and so it's a very hard life. There are also things out in the wild that hunt them. There are things called dust bears. Pretty sure that's what they were called, which are things that hide in the sand and will literally eat you if you come close to them. And yeah, so she lives a very sad and I shouldn't even say sad. She lives a very hard life. I'll leave it there. And Ivar lives in a library, and he is, or better yet, I should say, he is imprisoned in a library. So his entire life has been in this very, very large cavern that has stacks of books everywhere. And his life's mission has been to find a way out. This library is ancient, it is timeless, it has guardians, and I'll just call them guardians that are in it that either they have their specific purpose that you have to go about, but the 2 storylines eventually collide, and you get to see the interactions of these 2 worlds. You also have a kind of war going on in the background. I am going to give you guys an individual review of this book because I just thought it was so phenomenal, and I want to talk about non-spoilers but little intricacies that I thought were really cool, but I will do that in a separate video. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek. I absolutely love this book, and if it sounds interesting to you, please pick it up. So that is my ranking list of the 19 new releases that I have read in 2023. What new releases have you guys read this year? Which ones did you enjoy? Let me know in the comments down below. I would love to chat with you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!